Hey everybody, welcome to the Struggling Hunters. Tonight we got a quick show. I I just wanted to start off and you know tell you guys thanks for all the support that you've given us, and uh, it's pretty cool. We always say it. I know that it probably for you guys that listen all the time, it probably sounds a little redundant, but we really appreciate the support. Uh, One other thing though, before we really get going tonight, I just wanted to ask everybody to Uh, think about what you want us to talk about. Like maybe give us some ideas or some topics to talk about or a question. Anything that you got would be pretty cool. Uh, with that said, Joe, what do you got going on tonight?
Tonight, so if you've been following the struggling hunters the last couple of weeks, we talked about the Fred Bear's commandments, and then I'm going to talk about the hunt I did over this last Friday and Saturday. Evening hunts is what they were, and that's pretty much the long and short of it. And but so I guess I'll go ahead and dive into Fred Bear's number 7, which reads camouflage your appearance, your sound, and your scent. And me and Eric read that one, and we kind of went like, well, he talked about couple of them before, or one or two or three before. His one of his commandments was you don't need camouflage because Grandpa hunted in plaid shirts and blue jeans. I added the blue jeans.
Yeah.
but, but here is number 7 saying to camouflage yourself, and and you know and with that being said, I don't I always seem to like kind of look up to understand how the deer and elk and stuff, how their eyeballs work, because like there's cones and rods in your eyes, and that's how color is reflected, and that's how you're able to see different colors and see at night and see in the daytime. And it always seems like like they don't see kind of like how we see shapes, and they see more like solid colors, not so much color, I guess. But anyways, so I think that's how Grandpa was able to get away with not as much camouflage. But you still got to do something to disguise your shape, break your shape up somehow. And uh and then so camouflage your appearance, your sound, and your scent. That's the one thing like that's one that I've been trying to get better at, is my sound. And what I mean by sound is being okay with making sound, and then knowing what sound is okay that I've made in the woods, I guess. Like, it seems like if you're just walking, because how many times have you sat in the woods and heard a twig snap and out comes a deer?
Oh, all the time,
Right.
or quite often anyway.
So, I think that you can probably play that to your advantage at some points, and then camouflage your scent. That one's kind of interesting because, I feel like we probably should have done a whole episode around camouflaging your scent. I say that because um, everybody back east, it seems like you read articles about guys hunting whitetails in their little hunting clubs and stuff back east, Midwest, and whatnot, and they have their little scent killer totes that they throw their bags in. They got scent killer spray that they put on. They wear rubber boots so that way they don't track scent out to their tree stand. And then you come out here to out west, and you know everyone's like, oh, I don't worry about that. I just play the wind. I just use the wind in my benefit, to my benefit, which I guess if you're, that makes sense because you're, well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So hunting here in the West, you kind of have a couple different types of hunts, right? You got your main camp spot that you go back to every night, or you throw a pack on and you're spike camping for 2 3 days or whatever. Well, when you're spike camping, you're trying not to, because you're out there with everything you have on your back, so you're not wanting to carry any extra clothing or a bottle of scent killer with you, because you'd rather have food or water than some of that stuff. So you end up stinking. You can't, you know, shower every night or bathe every night. But, if you come back to a base camp every night, you can put new clothes on for the next day or new socks or, whatever it is. And you're not carrying around all that stinky stuff. And although you guys are probably going to get tired of us saying it, because we've said it before, and we're probably going to say it the whole rest of the year till next hunt. But what we've learned this year watching that cow elk run away, because that's all we figures is that she just sniffed us. You got to find a way to cover that scent, whether it's playing the wind and understanding the wind, or covering it somehow. Because I will say that those sprays probably do help cover your scent, because that's a number one giveaway is what they smell. It's one of their top, what do you call it, senses. Top.
Yeah, I would go with top senses.
Is what they it's what they depend on quite a bit. So I don't know, what are your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, it's I think maybe in the future I'll play with that a little more. I've never really worried about my scent. Back in the day I would get those sprays, the Estra spray and the what's the bull piss
Uh-huh.
spray. And I think at the end of the day, kind of just ended up getting. You kind of just ended up just stinking, really, more than anything. Probably, I don't know. There's all kinds of theories about it, and so I used to think like, oh, that would be the big trick, to cover your scent, but I never really had it work for me, and I know that it's going to be a little controversial. Some people are going to, well, actually, it does, and I agree, but kind of with what you said is I think just playing the wind to your best ability is your best opportunity. When it comes to deer, I kind of get the tree stand thing a little bit. It kind of makes sense, but I also feel like whenever you're out there in the elk woods and other people are hunting in the same area, and or you've been hunting a certain area every day or whatever the case may be, and then that elk pops out or deer pops out. I mean, they probably smell you at some point, and they still popped out. So,
Right.
but it's important. I mean, you know, to go back on another thing that I've said before, I think everything is important. It's just some things I think are maybe more valuable than other things. Like
Right. Well, and the other thing too is, we talk about these commandments and whatnot, and and we, yeah, man, I keep stumbling over my words trying to spit out what I want to say tonight too. But you're gonna do you, meaning things happen to you, and you're gonna go back to kind of what you know. So like, like if you shot your bull elk and you're using some kind of scent killer, or eliminator, or, or whatever, you're gonna more than likely do that again. It's kind of, like everyone's like, oh, I wear the same underwear through the whole World Series because that's my lucky thing to do. So sometimes, like things work and you're gonna copy that because you want to get that success again.
yep, yeah. Kind of to go off of what you're saying, I was just thinking about that same thing. Really, is I think the scent blocker and all that. Anybody that's been successful after trying scent blocker, I mean, they're gonna religiously think that it works
Right.
because it worked for them one time. And I don't know, maybe next year we'll work on that a little harder, or I will, or whatever. But we can like kind of test that theory out and see if it really helps.
Right. It would be kind of
Because
interesting just in the off season, do just kind of maybe do just walk with just regular clothes on in the woods and just walk around in the, like, I guess it'd probably work best if you walked with the wind blowing at your back instead of in your face, just so that way kind of give you a little bit better of a synopsis versus, if you walk into the wind, that's going to be like the number one scent killer anyways, is having the wind blowing your scent the other direction of where you're going.
yeah, I mean that what is it, Deadwind Company?
Yeah,
They
dead
built a
downwind.
whole Dead Downwind. Yeah, they built the whole company around. I mean,
Right.
they have the soap, the the laundry soap. I think regular soap. I mean,
Deodorant.
they have a whole, yeah, deodorant. They have a whole line of no scent. So I don't know. I probably works.
Right.
So speaking of that, I did kind of have that thought about the chalk, or
Uh-huh.
you know baby powder, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but your scent checker or your wind checker. I always kind of wondered that. I'm like, whenever I do that, what kind of smell is that putting off, if it travels through the woods?
Right. Well, it's kind of funny because, like, on that note too, if you read the fine print or it says on there like odorless, and
Uh,
but there's been times where I let out a whole bunch, and like I could definitely, like, I smell like a smell to it, but it's not, you know your typical smells.
Maybe that's what odorless smells like.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of. I mean, I'll just go back to I think everything counts. I think everything matters. So it's probably a good thing. I
Right.
don't practice it that much,
Well, and I guess, to say
and
too, is the way that we're hunting is mostly out of the base camp, and I'm sure that's something that we could do that'd probably help us. Like, we're not the best.
mm-hmm.
We talk about wanting to follow the thermals and the wind, but we're not perfect at it yet. That's something that we threw into our bag of tricks this year, more or less. But if I'm sure it'll help. Like, end of story, and end of day, you throw
I,
on
I
your scent lock, and it's going to help.
I feel like we should kind of clarify that though, because I feel like we've always tried to play the wind to an extent, but I don't think we realized how serious it was until we got blown out, winded by that cow
Right.
elk. I think that's whenever it all really sunk in, because, I mean, in years past we were always like, oh, where's the wind, and tried to go the opposite way of the wind,
Right.
but I think this year was whenever we kind of saw, we experienced with our own two eyes the how serious it gets.
Right.
So,
For sure.
but yeah, I mean, I think it all counts, and I think, but anyways, yeah, I mean, kind of going all over the place because we're kind of like, well, it almost kind of conflicts with I think it was number 4, maybe number 5, with Fred Bear's commandments, but it's it's I I get it though. I mean, yeah, the quieter you are, the less scent you're putting off. Uh, but man, I feel like on day 5, I don't care if you have scent blocker on or whatever. I mean, you're smelling ripe no matter what.
Right.
And so I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know if I've never taken it too serious because of those kind of thoughts. I mean, I'll have baby wipes or something to kind of give myself
Right.
a little white bath or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, day 5, it doesn't matter, man. You're stinking.
Yeah.
And so I've never taken it serious. But I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be a good test to try and just see if we get different results.
Right.
I had a guy one time. He was trying pine. Oh, what's that? It was a pine scent. What's that?
Pine tar.
Yeah, it was just like a it was. Oh, what are those called? Those little bottles of. Uh, man, I had it just a minute ago and I lost it. That. Anyways, it smelled like pine, right?
Right. Right.
And so he had the idea that if you're in pine country and you spray that on your clothes, then you just kind of smell like a tree.
Right.
Long story short, I tried it and I don't know if it really helped me at all or anything.
uh,
But it sounded like a good idea at the time.
yeah.
Extract. That's what I was.
Extract.
Extract.
Okay.
Pine extract. Yeah. Ah, man. I hate it when those nights whenever you just can't get words together. You know,
Yeah.
they're fighting with you, and I keep telling them they don't control me.
And they say, "Watch this."
Yeah, yeah. Hold my vocabulary.
Right. I'll show him.
Oh man, yeah. But anyway, yeah. I think it's a, you know, it makes sense. I mean, camouflage everything, and you know, I feel like one thing that I started doing this year, probably more than other years, is just being okay with stopping and being quiet for a few, I mean, an hour or two, and just see what the woods does.
Right.
Try to get kind of what my attack plan was is I'd try to get to a certain spot that I wanted to go, and then I'd get there and just stop, settle down, let the woods do what they were doing, and try to listen for activity. And it was cool because you got to spot a lot of different sounds, and try to you know those little squirrels, man, the throwing pine cones and stuff like
Right.
that was entertaining kind of because it was fun to watch them. They'd throw them off. I mean, get up to the tippy tops of the trees, and then throw those pine cones down. And after they're done throwing however many they wanted to throw down, they'd. And what was also kind of funny though is watching them. So they get entertained by watching their pine cones fall. I'd watch them like throw one down, and then they'd watch it hit the ground. Maybe they were like, oh, okay, that one landed there. Maybe that was some of it, but it seemed to me like they were kind of watching it like it entertained them to watch it fall.
Yeah.
And but yeah, then they'd get down to ground level and then start hauling them back to their little stash. But more often than not, whenever it first started, well, I kind of got used to it, and I'm like, oh, that's a squirrel. But when it first happened, I'm like, oh man, activity. There's an elk around here. I'm always hoping for an elk. But yeah, and then be like, damn squirrels. So it was pretty cool though.
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of take the note there. Sorry, let's take that down. Um, I'm settling down and listening to the woods do its thing. Uh Jump into my little, uh, I guess Joe's guiding services in a way. You want to call them that? This my last Friday and Saturday. So as you know, I had a guy in my neighbor down here, and he got him a deer tag, doe tag, and we haven't been quite able to hook up to go out. And I think I talked about it a couple nights or a couple of podcasts ago, where I was up above the bee and happened to come across some does. I was sitting there watching, and we a couple of weeks went by, and so we went up again, or we finally got to go up. And Friday we went up, and I was kind of telling him about this spot, and we get up there, and right where I was wanting to go, like it was a little bit of time before dark, And right where I was wanting to go, there was a truck sitting there in my spot, and I was like, man, I've never seen anybody like park here. Like all the time I've been going up and down, like no. And then, but I was like, oh well, it's public land. It is what it is. And so we continued driving on up, and he gets talking. He's like, yeah, I really want to shoot a doe that doesn't have a fawn with it. I don't want to separate them. And well, yeah, that's cool. And so we get driving up there, and he starts talking, and he starts into a story, and I'm like, deer. And it was on his side of the road. We're more or less, I guess you say, road hunting kind of, but not. We were just trying to find a spot to sit and watch. And he looks over at it, and the brush is really thick off the side of the road. And he's like, where? And I was like, it's just right there, like straight even with you. He's looking, and finally his eyes adjust, and there's a little. It was a fawn. And I was like, oh, mom has to be around here somewhere. And we kind of rolled forward a little bit, and like, there's mom. So where? I was like, just right there. Finally, he adjusted to it, and but again, it had a fawn with it, so we didn't really want to pursue it. So we continued up the road, trying to find other places to pull off and look. And we got to a point, got out and looked, and decided to work our way back down. And we got to where, did a couple stops, didn't quite. We talked to someone else that had a doe. They thought it was a doe bedded, but it was a little ways out there. We wouldn't have been able to get to it, and so we continued on down. With that spot where I saw the does, and then there was that truck that was parked there on the way up was no longer there. So we pulled off the side of the road and started glassing. And I had no idea what exactly he had in mind and how he wanted to go about, his time sitting and watching for stuff. And we sat there, and I was glassing the whole time. We're standing there and looking, and I was like, well, if you want, we can move on down. And I was kind of, it's your hunt. I did see deer here, but like, I don't. It's, well, you can move on. And we're kind of talking him on a little bit, and then he looks across and like, deer. I was like, all right. So we sat there and watched them, and like, there was about 5 deer, and they all came out of the scrub oak in the same spot. And there was just this little. It was a hillside that had just a little bit of a ridge. It went, created a little bit of a valley, so the deer were coming out on the high side, but then they were able to walk down in this valley and walk out of sight. But then as they walked uphill, that little valley kind of disappeared, and they walked back up into view. And so we sat there, and the first one was like, oh man, we missed it, like, oh, that was it. And then like another one walked up, all right, there's another one. And finally they kind of worked their way up to where we can see them again, and ranged them at 340. And it was that whole thing, like, well, that's kind of a long shot. And so we end up just deciding to watch them, and headed back down. And we're like, well, let's come up Saturday evening. And there was an area that I kind of turkey hunted, so I kind of knew how to hike up into it. And so I was like, yeah, let's just give ourselves plenty of time, hike up into that spot and let things get quiet, and hopefully something will come out. Well, and as we were watching them, it's kind of funny because not even that far around from where they walked out, there was someone target practicing. And there were shots being fired, and we're like, that's kind of odd that they're just kind of, like eating, not really caring that there were shots being fired.
Wow.
It sounded like a 22, or a smaller calibered gun, and they weren't shooting all that rapidly either. And so we made a plan, and we're like, oh, we'll just, we'll hike up in there and try to get even closer, so that way it's not that far of a shot on Saturday night. So we did that. We made our way up in there and sat down in some scrub oak, and got ourselves a good little opening in front of us with some like little bushes in front of us too. And we sat there for about like 2 hours. Right. And I was like, oh, they're gonna come, it's gonna come out. But about the time they would have came out, there was someone like that was rapid firing like a bigger caliber gun. So I don't know if like the louder noise scared the deer or if they just decided to go another direction that day because we more or less put them to bed the night before. There was no one else. They disappeared, and then no one else was there, and it was dark enough that no one would be able to see them when we left. But yeah, I was kind of like, yeah, we're getting one. We're driving up there, feeling pretty good about ourselves.
Uh,
But the deer struck again. They won.
yeah. Wow, what a bummer.
Yeah,
Well, hopefully my hunt's in exactly 2 weeks. Well, almost exactly. Uh, so hopefully my deer hunt goes a little better.
right,
I don't know. I'm a little worried about hiring Joe's
right.
guiding services now, though.
Well, hey, we would have had him if we would have been comfortable shooting that 340 yards,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
we weren't.
Maybe I could try that. I might try a shot at 300.
Yeah, yeah. You're sighted in at what, 2 or 100?
I'm sighted in at one, but I mean,
It's
I'm sure I can
yeah. Those
adjust.
as long as just set you down and got you
Get
to
get
where you're comfortable.
get me settled down,
Yeah,
settled in.
yeah.
It'd be fun. Hey, I got a couple questions for you before we get out of here. If a guy puts on scent blocker and road hunts all day, does that help him out?
It probably helps this truck out.
Yeah, just kind of curious.
Well, yeah. I don't. It helps something.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about that earlier when we were talking about it. I forgot to ask it. I was like, I wonder how many people are like, oh, you got to have scent blocker, and then they just road hunt all day.
Right. Well, it seemed like quite a bit because I saw a lot of people driving in their rigs Saturday and Friday
Uh,
evening.
yeah, it's kind of amazing. I mean,
Well, I will say so. There's one spot that, as I go up here, that kind of opens up and I can see this whole hillside. Right, like
mm-hmm.
I can see a vast amount of country. And whenever I've gone up there to scout or just to go for a drive, I pull off right there and just look because it's such a big area, and it's a hard area to hunt because it's steep and big.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're gonna just take a nice little day hike and get in there. If you're going in there, you're committed, and it's a heck of a hike to come out. So I kind of watch it thinking, like, oh, I'm gonna see a big buck or something down in there one day. Well, I've never seen a big buck in there, but I always look. But where I'm getting at is it's always interesting to me. I guess I'm guilty of it just as much as the next guy. But like road hunting, and then like they set up to glass an area, but the area they're glassing is so far away that if they did see something, they'd never get into a position to put a shot onto that animal. And that's just I don't know. As I've been thinking about that, and if I'm driving between spots, is like, okay, am I going to be able to set up some place to actually have a shot, or am I just going to look? But it just seems like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm hunting, but then like they're looking across this vast area where it's like, can you make a 1,200-yard shot?
Well, some people are trying it nowadays.
Right.
Uh well, I kind of get the tactic though a little bit. I mean, I think there's an advantage to traveling on the road and pulling off and seeing, see what the activity looks like.
True.
See if you can see anything and then commit to that area at least. I mean, I've done that. yeah, I don't do a lot of road hunting, but even for my doe hunt, I mean, I plan on getting out a little bit, but I might not be too far away from the truck.
Right.
So yeah, man, I don't know, whatever works. I think for deer, it's easier to get away with road hunting than it is elk, in my experience.
Right. Yeah. I believe
Once in a
that.
while, you get lucky and there'll be an elk or two that run across the road, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the one advantage to road hunting is you get to cover so much country in a vast amount of time, a lot faster
Right.
than walking, obviously. But
Yeah.
with elk hunting, though, it just seems like they're not really by the road anyway,
And if
most
they
of the
are,
time.
it's a bizarre
It's
freak
yeah,
accident.
yeah. They're just trying to get from one point to the other, or they got blown out from their spot anyway, so
Right.
they're just running across the road to get away from, which probably happens all the time too.
Yeah.
But I always hear those people that get lucky, and get something right off the road, and I'm like, man, how come I never get lucky like that?
Right. Right.
But
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. Do you have anything else?
uh, I feel like I did, and then I
Then I cut
lost
you
it.
off.
No, no, you didn't cut me off. I just lost it whenever I asked you about the no scent road hunting thing. I don't know. You still coming up for my hunt?
I think
Planning on it?
so. Yeah, still planning on it. As long as
Good,
everything goes as like planned, it should be there.
good, good, good. I'm excited.
Me
I'm
too.
excited. Get to hang out and hopefully get something.
Yeah.
That's the big
Yes.
thing, man.
Right.
Break break this struggling cycle.
On actually a bigger game animal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm still striking zero for the turkey too. So I'm really in need for an animal.
Right. We'll get there. We'll get there. We're putting all our ducks in a row. But
Yeah,
at least if anything, we can always talk each other up.
yeah, for sure. Before we get out of here though, man, don't I mean, we've talked about it outside the podcast, but don't you just love doing this stuff? Really? I mean, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I just kind of a thought that came through.
Well, it's like end of the day, I mean, you can call it an excuse, but it's just fun to be able to go out in the woods and experience that. Like, seeing squirrels drop stuff out of the trees. Like, you don't get to see that in the city or anything, or just take time and ponder and, cover ground, and trying to hunt and it's just fun. Yeah, it's fun just being in the wilderness, and especially if you can get an animal come past you and just to watch it live without knowing you're there.
Yeah, that is really cool. That bear that I saw earlier this year. I mean, that was kind of that situation. He had no idea where I was, and uh, or I hope he didn't. Well, I was hoping he didn't. I guess at the time, that was my first thought was like, holy crap, I see a bear. That's so awesome. And then my second thought was like, hope he didn't see me. Hope he's not hungry.
Right. Uh, but
But yeah, that was yeah. It's fun though. It's fun seeing all that stuff and just I don't know, man, being out there. And I wish. I mean, that's kind of the goal, I guess. Is one of these days we are able to spend more time out in the woods and kind of do what we love a lot more often. I mean, that's the end goal. But it's
yeah,
one of those things I just wish I could do even more. Now I'm always wishing I could do more. In some ways, I probably could. I mean, I could probably get away a lot more than I do, but that's the. This is something else that we kind of talked about outside the podcast, but that's the struggles of that's part of being the struggling hunters, is the fact that we got all these other obligations
Right.
outside of one of our main passions.
Yep.
So a lot of fun. But anyways, I don't know. I was trying to see if we could get in a rabbit hole or something, but that's pretty much all I got, man.
Yeah. So you guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for listening to us to the end here. We appreciate it. Um, like Eric said, if you have any questions or want us to talk about a certain topic or anything, feel free to drop a comment, and that's one of the great things about being a follower of the struggling hunters. And you leave a comment, you'll more than likely be responded to. Um, but uh, but thanks again for all those that have, and for all those that have watched, and look forward to telling you guys some more stories next week. So thanks again, and everybody, take care.
Later, guys.